All right, welcome out. Here we are again. We're getting down to the nitty-gritty, chapter 14. We just got a couple chapters to do after this. It's quite a chore, a task. As you can see, just me merely going over the general outline or general concepts within each chapter and kind of overall and occasionally connecting various chapters together. A lot of time. I'm spending about an hour on each chapter, and I could easily spend 5-6 hours on each chapter, easily. As I said, I've read through this multiple times. I've written articles and incorporated some of these points and concepts into my materials. I have gone over this stuff considerably exhaustively, not necessarily so, but well enough so that I have pulled from it, as one is want to do, as one wants to, in garnering or pulling forth or gathering information of insight, understanding that will help shape, form, instruct, guide, motivate you to get things done, right? Who's your greatest motivator? Go look in the mirror, right? That's your greatest motivator. You can certainly get help from people. Maybe read some books, go online, get some coaching, webinars, seminars. But, those are for ideas, and also, mastermind, having a group there that is there to push you and to prod you and push you, not provoke, hopefully, prod and push you along, to encourage you. That's important. But still, that's the tip of the iceberg, very tip of the iceberg. You are responsible for getting yourself motivated, staying motivated, right? You're accountable, you're responsible, right? Whenever you're pointing fingers out, oh, it's his fault, it's her fault, it's their fault, it's that fault of that one, this organization, this group, these individuals, right? You'll notice that there's one finger pointing out, three coming back, right? One out, three back. So yes, the greatest emphasis on getting anything done should be directed towards yourself. Speaking of getting things done or not, failure. Failure is not an option. I love that bumper sticker. Failure is not an option. And I go, yeah, because if you're going to try, even with a minimal effort, you're going to fail. Learning is about not knowing, especially when you're starting out something, a new venture. Consider that, 95% of new businesses fail in the first 3 years. Isn't that crazy? Too much failure. Why start a business? Well, the thing is that, first of all, it's very difficult. Figuring out what it is that people want. You can be the smartest, most well-adjusted, most insightful, most motivated person on planet Earth, but if you don't get something to people who want to buy it, view it, read it, purchase it, then it's just going to go by the wayside. Nothing's going to happen, right? And sometimes it's just a matter of doing something over and over again. Sometimes it'll take weeks, months, years, decades of failing and a retrying again and again and again. There have been people that I've read about who have been successful early on in life, sure, but some not until their 40s or 50s, and believe it or not, some not until their 80s or 90s. I don't know. There's no guaranteed path to success. Oftentimes, well, I don't want to say often, but many times, success can be just pure luck, roll of the dice, right? And in most cases, you usually have to have something of substance. But if you look at what's on television, what's coming out in movies, Netflix, YouTube, social media, and so forth, a lot of that has very little value, substance, or merit. I've seen some of the dumbest people with the least talent ever become very successful, right? They're not very intelligent. They're not very resourceful. They're not very talented. They're not much going on at all, but they achieve success. How does that happen? Don't ask me. Don't ask me. Lazy people become successful. Very hardworking people become successful, honest people, not so honest people. Look at politics, a lot of dishonest people in politics. But people that, dishonest people get into politics, stay in politics and remain in politics for years and years and years, decades. Some of them become president. Anyways, lesson 14, failure. Yesterday is but a dream, tomorrow is only a vision, but today, well lived, makes every yesterday a dream of happiness, and every tomorrow a vision of hope. Look well, therefore, to this day, from the Sanskrit. Interesting concept. All right, under ordinary circumstances, the term failure is a negative term. In this lesson, the word will be given a new meaning because the word has been very much misused, right? For that reason, it has brought unnecessary grief and hardship to millions of people. Again, that's what I've talked about. Failure is not an option. Yeah. And I'll bring up Michael Jordan again, and he brings up the fact that he says, I'm one of the most successful athletes because I was willing to fail more than most, right? His early years, terrible. He won his first championship at 27. LeBron was about the same age. There are many others who were probably 27, 28 before they won a championship. Sure, some won in the early years, but it takes a while. Winning, especially at that level, not easy. It's very difficult. Some may appear to do it with ease, but that's only after a lot of trial, tribulation, struggle, and probably sacrifice. Extreme sacrifice. And sometimes a mentality that is, in a sense, malicious, single-minded, right? Uncaring about, to a degree, not in an absolute sense, but relatively uncaring about anything other than winning. Even caring, there have been very successful teammates who really didn't care much for many of their own team members. I think of Kobe Bryant is one. He was not, particularly popular. Never mind amongst his opponents, but also amongst his teammates sometimes. Not always, but he would get pretty malicious. But 5 rings. MJ and Michael Jordan he'd hate losing anything. He would hate losing. Hey, do you remember what we had yesterday for lunch? Oh yeah, it was this. No, it wasn't. It was, and he would lose. Just it wasn't even a bet, a monetary bet, but just a remembering of or a recalling of what was had for lunch the previous day, and that would upset him. So failure, and it also depends on what emphasis you put on winning, and is it bizarrely extreme in the sense? I think sometimes certain ones. I think Michael Jordan for sure, even though he was very successful in winning championships, had a certain kind of perverse, bizarre sense of success, right? Some of the most successful people, not necessarily the nicest people, right? They're not the most loving, caring, patient, kind people, because their emphasis, again, is on winning. Anyways, in the outset, let us distinguish between failure and temporary defeat. Let us see if that which is so often looked upon as failure is not in reality but temporary defeat. Moreover, let us see if this temporary defeat is not usually a blessing in disguise. Nice. For the reason that it brings us up with a jerk and redirects our energies along the different and more desirable paths. And this has probably happened to you. I know it's happened to me and many people over the years. I think I've been fired from, 4 or 5 different jobs, most of them meaningless when I was working my way up. And that's why I got fired. They were kind of meaningless. But it seemed like every time that I was fired, I moved on and moved into something better. I remember I was working as a security guard. I went to school. I was living in Connecticut. Went to school, got a degree or certificate actually in programming. It was Fortran, COBOL, probably don't even remember or know what that is. That's big mainframe stuff back in the 90s. 80s, 90s, I guess, right? And I couldn't find a job, so I got a job as a security guard at a bank. And then eventually I got a job in the back room in the computer room, filing reports, breaking up reports and filing reports and running reports every night. Huge, copious piles of reports in boxes and distributing, and bursting them, breaking. They come out in triplets or 4 pieces sometimes, and I have to put them on a collator and pull them apart, and then cut up all the reports into the various reports that were in there. They were all kind of together, snaked to get together, and then you had to rip them apart and pull out the reports, and then place them in the boxes of the programmers, or send them out, or send out information or reports or bills or statements to the customers as well. And that's where I started. Then I got into operations, moved into computer operations, which was a step up in pay and responsibility. A lot more interesting than just cutting and bursting and distributing reports. Then I left there and I became a kind of a semi supervisor. I was working second shift all by myself. So I was the go-to at a hospital. And then I moved into another position, doing desktop support, working, helping people with their computers, their desktop software and printers and whatever else was connected related to that stuff. Also distributing reports. And then I got into programming. Then I got into, I was a programmer in Boston, moved up to Boston. And I did all that in about 6-7 years. And then I left it because I realized that at a certain point, there was no way that I was going to make a career out of it. So there you go. And then I got into the comedy, did that for about 5-6 years. And then into teaching business, and there it is, right? So there are temporary defeats. And sometimes you have to give, if you're going to try to, try a particular avenue, you have to give it time. Like I gave the computer field path avenue some time, maybe, I don't know, what was it, 5-6 years or so. And then I moved into, did the comedy for a while, did that for about 5-6 years. And you find out along the way, whether or not you're going to stay, right? If you're just bailing out because, it's not, you don't feel it's working out, or you're frustrated or whatever, probably not a good reason to do that. In both fields, I spent a long time being frustrated, but I knew I had to stay with it until I knew it was time to move on, right? So the same thing with the academic realm, but I've probably been in that off and on over the last 25 years. And it looks like I'll be moving out of that pretty soon, and then moving into the final phase, which will just be information concerns and distribution of the said information via social media and whatnot, like what I'm doing now, right? So there's a method to the madness, and you have to plan, and you have to follow a particular path for a certain period of time. But at some point, and you really don't know whether or not it's going to work out until you get on the path and try the path, right? There are many people. Why is it that half the people who go off to college never graduate? Well, because once they finally get out there, it's different from what they thought it would be. Also, those who do graduate from college within 5 to 10 years, 70% are no longer working in a job related to their field. Why? Because they get out there and they find out, well, this isn't really, even though I have a degree, this isn't really working out for me, right? Or they get laid off, or they get fired, or they get bored, or they know it's time to move and they make an intentful move to do something else, right? So it's generally a crapshoot. There are certain things you can do, as I'm trying to give you now. Knowing these things, this stuff that I'm giving you, much better chance of doing it more effectively, with less, what's the word I'm looking, less wandering, I guess, with more precision, greater precision, accuracy, forward movement, I guess you could say. That's what all this stuff is about, right? Not kind of just wandering through a nebulous cloud, wondering, imagining, hoping, praying. I remember one former student, who said that he declared his major engineering. I said, why? He said, it sounds good. Good Lord, a career, family is probably the first most important decision you can make, then career. And if you're making a career decision based on, it sounds good, I'll get some respect. People like going to law or become a doctor, think they're going to become a doctor, going, if you go into the law field, which is highly demanding, it's stressful and difficult, or the computer field, there's another one, highly demanding and stressful and difficult, or STEM fields, technological fields, medicine and so forth. Those are not easy paths. I hope you're not just thinking, well, I'll get respect as a doctor, lawyer, engineer, whatever, fill in the blank. That's what I need. I want the respect. If you're doing it just for that, forget it. 90 some odd % chance you're not going to make it, and people don't. I have seen so many students over the years who give me these half baked ideas about what they're going to be, and most students statistically will change their major 3 times or more, on average 3 times, even before they graduate. Never mind, changing what you're doing after you graduate. 70% within 5 to 10 years, no longer working in a field related to their major. Here's another statistic for you. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, since the 90s, 60% of those who graduate college are working in jobs that don't even require a high school diploma, such as my stepdaughter, my sister got into a job in that situation. I was there for a while. Not that people stay there forever, but 60%, any given year, 60%. Most jobs don't require a degree, but more and more jobs were requiring a degree. That's going by the wayside a little bit, and I think it was because of the COVID fiasco effect on the job market, right? You hear more and more employers not making a college degree a requirement. So that seems to be changing. But the work environment's always in flux, and it's very complicated. So me giving you some all-encompassing analysis and overview of what the job market is specifically doing, forget it. It's very broad, it's very vast, it's very dynamic, right? I don't know. I'm no genius. I don't know everything. I am also, like you or anybody else, equal in our infinite ignorance. So how can I determine or detect? All I'm doing for you is giving you tools, skills, and abilities, knowledge, attitudes that are going to enhance your chance, not make it perfectly 100% successful. There's always chance for failure. But if you want to decrease your chance for failure and create less wiggle room and failure in that sense, then this is the stuff to look into. In lesson 9 of this course, we learned that strength grows out of resistance, and we shall learn in this lesson that sound character is usually the handiwork of reverses and setbacks. There you go. And temporary defeats, which the uniform part of the world calls failure. More people have created or discovered or developed greater compassion, insight, patience, understanding, you fill in the blank, whatever characteristic you want to throw in there, through adversity than through all of the good times that they've had. All the trips to the theme parks or whatever, their parties and their friends hanging out, have all those good times together couldn't make up for one failure, one difficulty of considerable challenge or difficulty. Those are the things, and Ching-Ning Chu will talk about this in Thick Face Blacker. Those are the things that really develop and chisel away at the weakness that we all have in us, right? You're basically turning a rock into a gem, some type of diamond or emerald, some type of valuable gem. And we all start off rough, but you want to chip away and create greater content in here, right? Inner projection. Neither temporary defeat nor adversity amounts to failure in the mind of the person who looks upon it as a teacher that will teach some needed lesson. That's true. And again, the more you want to achieve, the more unusual or difficult the challenge is, the more you're going to fail, the more you're going to run into difficulties. Me and my coaching business, right? It's been failure after failure, some successes, but generally mostly failure. which is okay. Yeah. But when those successes come, it's like in sales. You go out as a salesperson, if you're making 5% of your contacts, 10% of your contacts make 10% sales, you're doing pretty good. Look at baseball. If you get a hit 30% of the time, failing 70%, 7 out of 10, getting a hit 30% of the time, you're one of the best hitters in baseball, right? That type of thing, right? Or winning a championship. What did Michael Jordan won 6 out of what, 14 years or so? So is that he's about 60% failure? Tiger Woods, one of the most successful golfers ever, about 70-80% failure. There you go. Right. And I think that's why people really latch on to the highly successful, or why people even more so bandwagon, right? They don't want to be with a loser, right? Because, well, they know losing. It's very difficult to win, to be a winner, to win consistently. Extremely, that's the very tip of the iceberg. Very few people, very few teams, very few times does that happen. I was looking at the Bill Walton. I don't know if you remember him. Sadly, I think he does color commentary now for ESPN or some. He does college. I don't know if he does pros anymore, but he's an old dude. He's probably got to be 70s, maybe 80. And when he was younger, he was phenomenal. I think he won like 140 games in a row. His teams, from high school his senior year to like his third year, I think his third year at UCLA, he won like 140 games in a row. Nobody does that. Well, he did, right? Something was happening, right? And UCLA also has the record for the most wins in a row, 80 wins in a row. Particular, I think it's weird because back when he was playing, there was freshman and then senior. I don't know. It's weird how it worked. But I think the record for most wins in a row at the college level was 80. Yeah, for the men. I think the women, the UConn Huskies, my home state, UConn, I think they might have broken that record. I don't know, but that is so rare, right? So rare. And in football, the top teams have won what, 4, 5, 6 Super Bowls. Tom Brady. That's once in not a lifetime, but once in human history, right? Or NFL history. 20 years of winning seasons, 6 rings, right? I think it's 6 or 7, I forget. I think you have 5 or 6 with New England. That's just that's freakish. Something was happening there, something, I don't know. So you get these things that happen once in a while, right? But he got 6 rings, and there's just a handful of teams that have 4, 5, or 6 rings, and think of all the seasons that teams have been together. Even the Patriots, how many years have they been around, right? 50 years, 40, 50 years, 6 rings out of 50. What's that? 6 divided by 50. It's not a very good percentage. So most of the time you're failing. You're gonna fail. So life's about failing. Enjoy, right? Good luck with that, right? But as you prepare and do work and research and acquire knowledge and experience and put in some effort and struggle and work, right? That's when you'll never eliminate failure, but you can decrease it, right? Defeat often talks to us in dumb language that we do not understand. If this were not true, we would not make the same mistakes over and over again without profiting by the lessons that they might teach us. If it were not true, we would observe more closely the mistakes which other people make and profit by them. The main object of this lesson is to help the student understand and profit by this dumb language. I like that, dumb language, in which defeat talks to us. Perhaps I can best help you to interpret, the meaning of defeat by taking you back over some of my own experiences covering a period of approximately 30 years, and then he's going to give an example, develop his point there through exemplification, right? And then he goes on after finishing a course in business college. I did this and I did that. Second turning point, my next position. So he's giving you an extended example, right? I was succeeding by leaps and bounds until that third turning point. Let's read this. Oh, we're in the middle of the third turning point. And again, you can read this. That's evidence. I'm not going to be reading through the evidence. I am just going to be reading the main points, or what is called the abstract, right? Kind of like the outline, the overview, the main points. And then in any communication, verbal or written, the way you communicate or expand, I should say, expand upon the main points, communicate the main points, I guess we say, is by developing them, using different developmental forms. Sometimes you use exemplification, sometimes you use facts, sometimes you use statistics, charts, graphs, expert statements, testimonies, data, blah, 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 blah. So that's what he's doing here. One of the greatest leaders who ever lived stated the secret of his leadership in 6 words as follows: kindness is more powerful than compulsion. Ooh, kindness. I've said this before, that if you want to last, it's not about domination. Think about all the negative stuff in the world, right? Is domination, manipulation, coercion, forcing, screaming, manipulating, being overbearing, aggressive. That's not, that turns people away. That is presents really negative connotations. You got to be really good at working with people, have a pleasing personality. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be the nicest person all the time. Don't do that. If you're really nice, that's fine. If you're not, then just be yourself. And I've had many students and clients say, you're the most real professor, coach, dad, person I know. That's good. I don't care if they think that or not, but it's probably better if they do, right? I don't need them to say that, right? But I do need to be that, not only for them, but for me. You're always following the positive energy. The go to the strength, go to the power, don't go to the weakness. Kindness is not a weakness. There are a lot of people who are very kind, but if you mess with them, I was going to put a cuss word in there. Right? But if you mess with them, they're going to show a part of them that is strength. People who really get stuff done and who last and linger and stay aren't weak. They may be kind, but they're not weak. You can't be successful and maintain and sustain through weakness, right? Really doesn't happen. Maybe happens. There's always anomalies. Past data, Star Trek. Sir, that's an anomaly. Always unusual exceptions, but most cases, no. When I enter, so he's giving you a really long and extended metaphor. 4th turning point. Nothing I was beginning to say to myself, this is the attitude toward which I myself slipping. This move proved to be the next most important turning point of life. So he gives you a really extent. I don't want to read through this. It's way too long. I'm just going to read the highlighted stuff, the italicized stuff. Italicized to emphasize. I know. I'm basically, I haven't looked at this stuff in a long time, but I'm just looking at it again. I haven't looked at this in years, but I'm able to, because I know what I'm looking at. And I've been a college professor, and I know how to read, and I know how to analyze. I know how what certain areas of a text or a chapter or even a paragraph do. I know if you're doing those things right, I know what's there before I even look, right? I know italics oftentimes will emphasize a main point, right? That's what we have here. That's why I often stop at these italics. I'm giving a little bit of an English writing, reading, communicating lesson as well. At least refrain from accepting any defeat as failure until you shall have had time to analyze the final result. True. That's good. Remember this, when things go against you, that of all the expressions you carry in your face, the light of joy shines farthest out to sea. I'm not really one who's, hi, how's it going? Hi, Bob, happy days. I'm not. I'm not really like that. I'm kind of not sarcastic, but and I'm friendly with people, but I'm not a day glow idiot. Day glow idiot. I'm not all sunshine and roses and perky. You are what you are. I'm not going to dance around and sing and smile and do the shuffle and smile and sing, give you a song and la 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 la, hey Hollywood. I'm not that. So be yourself. I'm not that. What are you? If you're that, fine. I see some people who are like that. To me, it would be fake. I would be faking it. Be real. Be honest. And if you're not comfortable being that, why be that, right? Brings me to a fifth turning point. A lot of turning points. For the first time in my life, I was brought face to face with the opportunity to strike back at my enemies in a manner that would hurt. I had in my possession a weapon with teeth in it. Ooh, nice. The feeling that swept over me was a queer one. Would I have my enemies jailed, or would I take advantage of this opportunity to extend mercy, thereby proving myself to be made of a different type? Then and there was laid in my heart the foundation upon which the 16th lesson of this course is built, for I made up my mind to permit my enemies to go free as they could be made by my having extended them mercy and forgiveness. Really, why are you doing something? If you're just doing it for spite, for revenge, for yourself, the Hindu says that the self is a very small place, right, to remain, right? The self is too small to sustain, right? So often the greatest achievers, those who are of greatest worth not only to themselves, but definitely to others, get outside of the self, are not selfish, endlessly, excessively childish and immature, self-focused. That has a real immaturity to it, being spiteful and hateful and vengeful and mean. That means you've got a certain level of weakness in you, right? I could have then had them both placed behind bars. What do you know? Why? If somebody commits a heinous crime, you find somebody who has murdered someone or stolen something, then you definitely want to turn them in. But really, you have to think it through. You have to feel it through. You have to understand it through, right? There's an example in Ching-Ning Chu's book, Thick Face Black Heart. There is a Chinese warrior, a real guy, from 100 years ago or so, Han Zin, I think his name is. And he's confronted by a couple of punks one day in town, right? And they go, hey, you either fight us or crawl between our legs like a dog, right? So he decides to crawl between their legs like a dog, right? And people are looking at him and they see him, and word gets spread around town. This guy's kind of a wimp. What a spineless creature, right? Many years later, come to find out, he's become a hardened warrior, one of the most brave and successful warriors in the history of China, or was it Taiwan? Or maybe China. Say China for sake of argument. And somebody occasions upon him later on in life, I know you, great warrior. Weren't you the same one as a boy who groveled between the legs of two criminals, low-life criminals, in the town one day? I saw you. Why'd you do that? I see you're the greatest, probably our greatest warrior ever known. And even if you had a fraction of that skill or courage back then, you could have easily taken them both. Why didn't you do something? Why didn't you defeat them, fight them? And he says, I didn't, because it wasn't worthy of my honor. I would have dishonored myself. I would have dishonored my family. I would have dishonored my people. I would have dishonored my position. The only reason I would have beaten them was to serve myself. And there are much greater things in life than myself to serve. Stop right there. I even say that and I'm getting misty-eyed. That is amazing to me. That is amazing. That is character. That is character beyond the call of duty. Talk about going beyond what you're asked to do. That is exceptional. That is extraordinary. That is a leader, right? Oh, amazing. And there's a lot of examples like that. There's many in fiction. The Last Samurai with what's his name, the couch jumper, Tom Cruise. Great example there. He learns how to be honorable, right? He's a soldier. He's killed a lot of people. He's done it unjustly. He hates himself. He doesn't care if he dies. That's why he becomes an amazingly butt-kicking warrior, right? He doesn't care if he lives or dies. He has no fear. He doesn't care. Kill me. But if you don't, I'm going to kill you first, right? And then he's fighting. He's kind of a what do you call him? He's paid to be a fighter. He goes off to foreign lands. I think it's Japan, China, I forget. And he's paid, like a paid assassin, to fight or to lead. I think he's a captain in the military, to lead the fight against these people. Then he gets captured by the samurai, gets beaten down pretty seriously. And he tries to fight their best warriors and just gets beaten, but he keeps getting up and he keeps taking it, just pounded mercilessly, but he won't stop. He won't stop, right? And the I don't know what you call it, the lead samurai comes along and tells the guy who's fighting him, stop. There's something in this person that is of the greatest character. Preserve it. Right? Embrace it. Preserve it. Learn from it. Teach it. Get me all misty-eyed. 6th turning point. This goes on and on. It is far better to be associated with the few who are right than with the mob, which is wrong. The mob a lot of times is wrong, because right is always the winner in the end. And right, many times, oftentimes, a lot of times, is in the minority. It's difficult to go against the majority. Few people do it, even if they know it's wrong. Safer to be an anti-Jew during World War II in Nazi Germany. Many people didn't want to do it, but they wanted to live. They didn't want to die. So they would scream, Jew, Jew, right? Judah. Yeah, sometimes it's very, very, very difficult and dangerous to do the right thing. Not easy. People always are very pithy about it. Yeah, do the right thing, right? A lot of people are afraid to. It's difficult. And it's difficult because it has merit. Right? It's easy to follow the crowd, and the crowd is often doing something because they're being manipulated to do that thing. Right? This is good. One good point here. Once more, I was penniless. Unfortunate is the person who's never had the thrill of being penniless. It's not a thrill. I haven't been penniless, but I've been pretty much dollarless. I've been down to like $20 at a time, eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches once or twice a day, living on very much to nothing. So I've been there. And I grew up in upper middle class in Connecticut. Big house, big yard, pool, big town. Everybody had a house, big houses. Nobody, I don't remember anybody being poor in our town. But I've seen times when I've got down to nothing. I didn't ask for help. I wanted to do it myself. Prove to yourself your own worthiness. Grasshopper. For as Edward Bach had truthfully stated, poverty is the richest experience that can come to a man person. An experience which, however, he advises one to get away from as quickly as possible. Yes. Anyways, there's a 7:31. There's a lot of stuff here. A personal visit with your editor. He's got a lot of stuff here. Well, I'm toxic. Well, I am intoxicated with the glorious news of the war ending 1928. Well, that was World War One, but World War II would be starting just a few years down the road, right? 38, something like that, 1938 in Europe. Not fitting that I should attempt to do something to help preserve for the generation yet to come one of the great lessons to be learned from William Hohenzollerns effort to rule the earth by force, right? No one is living aright unless he or she so lives that whoever meets that person goes away more confident and joyous with the contact. Good. All of these, just I actually put together a collection of quotes. It's a book that I put together because I found all these quotes. And I oftentimes, and I put together maybe, I don't know, 10 chapters, 8, 9, 10 chapters. I forgot. I'll have to pull that book out sometime. Maybe I'll go through that too. 8, 9, 10 chapters of quotes and kind of categorize them and gave a general overview of the general points or concepts being made within those quotes within a particular category. Because people will read a quote and I really don't think they understand as they should, to the depth they should, and in relationship to other points that support it, that put it in context, right? You have this quote just thrown out there. There's a lot living around it, experienced in time and place, that really helps one to understand it better by put it in context of the time, of what was going on, of why that was said by who, what was Lillian Whiting going through, or the people of that time, place, background, culture, religion, I don't know, whatever it was, right? I believe most earnestly that anything a person acquires from fellow humans without the full consent of one from whom it is acquired will eventually burn a hole in his pocket or blister the palms, his hands, to say nothing of gnawing at the conscience until his heart aches with regrets, right? Yeah. Ownership, right? I've given examples about this. One time I found a $20 bill in Blockbuster when I was living in Boston. Blockbuster, a long time ago, right? They used to rent out videos, videotapes and DVDs, right? And I found a $20 bill on the floor in the back. There's like there's a shelf, there's a bottom shelf, there's an empty shelf there with a 20 on the shelf. And I said, gee, I wonder who owns it. I could have taken it. I could have used it. It's only 20 bucks. So I brought it up and I gave it to the cashier. When I said, I found this 20 back there, maybe somebody's going to come in looking for it. Yeah. And I've given this as an example, and people have said, I would have kept it. And I said, why? Because that person's probably just going to keep it anyways. I said, you don't know what they're going to do, right? You don't know what they're going to do. And by you keeping it, that's the wrong thing, right? You're going to feel that, maybe not that one incident, but as you continue to do dishonest things and things that are not right, be a Boy Scout, Girl Scout. And I'm not saying I'm perfect by any stretch of the imagination. Yeah. As a kid, I would steal stuff, I shouldn't be taking, right? Even from friends. I remember taking, what the hell was I taking? Like little toy cars from my friend's room. I just, ooh, that's a really nice little car. I want to take it home with it. But overall, you got to get away from that. You got to get away from that, right? And you feel it, and it adds up, right? Do the right thing. Wasn't that Spike Lee? Do the right thing. Yeah, there's a lot of extended examples. Give pleasure to a single heart by a single kind act is better than 1,000 head bowings in prayer. True. Because religious or not, prayer, you're meditating or you're being more focused on things that are of intellectual or emotional or spiritual quality, right? I don't know if you're religious or not, but some people meditate or will just walk out in the woods, be with nature to kind of get away from the everyday material world of working and worrying about bills and struggling for the dollar and survival. People want to get away from that. That's why people go off on vacations, go hiking, go off in the woods, go whatever, away, the beach. That's kind of a meditation, a getting away, a spiritual, emotional getting away, right? So that's all good and fine and dandy, and you probably should do that and need to do that, but yeah. One of the things that I heard is that if you're not religious, you don't necessarily have to believe in this, but God isn't so much about giving you things as giving you opportunities to give to others. If you want something, you pray for it. He's not going to just hand it to you. Somebody's going to come to you and help you. Then you build an appreciation for what that person does. You might make a friend. You help to support each other through this difficult thing called life. And you also might return the favor, pass it on. That it doesn't have to be a religious thing, right? But you can feel what's right. Do the right thing. Spike Lee. That was his movie, Do the Right Thing. I don't think he's a particularly religious guy. And that thought was to render the world the best service of which I was capable, whether my efforts brought me a penny in return or not. There you go. Right? The golden rule. Right? Do to others what you want done unto you. And it's a reciprocal thing, right? And people are like, oh, you've seen those videos, right? You see people do something nice, and the person's like, oh, really? Are you going to pay for my groceries? Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Thank you. I've been struggling. Oh, I saw one video recently within the last week, I think it was. And this guy was just handing out $500 to waiters and waitresses, right? And he gave $500 to this waitress. And she was a single mom. Just became a single mom. And she says, I've been here since 6 a.m. at 6 p.m. now. And now I can go home a little early just because you helped me make enough money to pay my rent. You don't know how much this helps. Then he was giving her other stuff. I forgot what he was giving her. And she goes, oh my gosh, you have saved me. You are, see, personal savior, right? It's not Jesus. It's a person helping other people, right? What would Bob do? What would Cindy do? What would you do? Yeah, this is a very, he's going on about the poor, the concept of poor being poor. When nature wants to drill a man, thrill a man, and skill a man, I like that. When nature wants to mold a man or woman to play the noblest part, when she yearns with all her art, there we go, to so create and bold a man, that all the world shall praise, watch her method, watch her ways, how she ruthlessly perfects, whom she royally elects, how she hammers him and hurts him, and with mighty blows converts him, mighty blows, in trial shapes of clay, which only nature understands. While his tortured heart is crying, and he lifts researching hands. I've written some poetry. This is pretty good. How she bends but never breaks. When it is good, she undertakes. How she uses whom she chooses, and with every purpose fuses him. By every art induces him to dry his splendor out. Nature knows what she's about. Nice little. He does have a tendency to go on and on, but I think you get the point. Anyways, 2 more chapters. That'll be good now. We'll see you the next time. Be good, humans.